Hello, everybody. It's me, Brodie McLeod, again, just doing some more vlogging just to keep my persona and my identity as a top YouTube user clear and verifiable. Probably another video I kind of shouldn't be making. I cut myself shaving today, as you can see, which is pretty skillful of me. And what have I been doing? Nothing really today. Had a nice chat with my brother. I think he was like repairing a water feature and cutting down a buddleia in a garden or something. That was when I was just sat on the bench outside. My phone rung. Took a selfie. That's, you can see in the corner there. That's the selfie I took. Sat on the bench outside. He rang me like as soon as I sat down. So I had to go back in and have a chat with him. Just sat on the stairs and we had a nice chat. Anyway, I've, as ever, got some AI generated content, which is broadly relevant to my situation and might be of interest to some parties, might be of no interest to anybody, and could be a completely delusional fixation of my paranoid mind. You might also be suffering from paranoia and, depression, delusions, bipolar disorder, multiple personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, which is what they now call psychopathy, and sociopathy is like antisocial personality disorder, I think. Basically because if people realised how many sociopaths and psychopaths lived on their road, they'd probably get really worried and paranoid, which might be what I'm suffering with. If you saw my video yesterday, you might sort of think that maybe I've got a point with being concerned. Gemini thought I had a point. Gemini thought I had a pretty good point with my general concerns regarding the legality of my detention. At first they were like, no, it will be defended by the lawyers, just cock up, just go through with an official NHS complaint, don't, it's not a police issue. And then eventually they said it was a police issue. A lot of people don't like the word police. I've grown up in a working class family with a single mum on income support and child benefits with 2 kids, living in a cardboard house with 3 school meals, and she had a crack habit at one point, which was pretty jarring. I didn't really like that. It was very out of character because she was quite sober. Apart from the occasional bit of puff she used to smoke, she was a very astute and intellectual lady, which is why I'm such a fucking gobshite. But you probably can appreciate that already. God bless my mum, and God bless yours as well, wherever she is. You've only got one, so do take good care of her. I'm going to read you some shit, and then I'm going to try and get some PRMs and have an early night because I didn't get enough sleep last night at all. So here is a situation, a scenario, right? So the hospital said the other day that they were banning energy drinks. We couldn't keep energy drinks in the security cupboard. I sort of questioned it in this meeting. It was like, that's a load of bollocks. What do you mean you haven't got space? The cupboard, right, is about the size of a door. So there's my bedroom door. It goes about 6-7 feet in that direction. So it's like, it's the size and shape of a door like this. You open the door and then it's as wide as a door, and it goes back probably about 8 feet. And there's only 8 patients on the ward. So they've got, like, if you look at the wardrobe, it's kind of like segmented like that. So they've got like shelving and little boxes that you can put stuff in. And it's not really, I said, people can drink energy drinks on leave, but they're contraband. You can't drink them when you're on the ward. And the staff are supposed to take a bit of a kind of notice about how many you have, because if you have like 5 cans of Monster, you might just start being hyperactive. If you've got psychosis or mania or schizophrenia, that's not great. It's the same with cups of tea and coffee. The men are sort of keep a broad, overview of how much coffee someone's had to drink. If they're like sweating at 4 a.m. and they're chaining coffees, the staff are supposed to step in and say, yo, chill it out, man, calm it down. So anyway, they said that we couldn't keep them in there. And this sort of really triggered my paranoia. It made me kind of really worried, and probably it's nothing, but I thought that the day before there was a point in the morning where everybody, there's a word, you probably have heard it, it's frenetic. Frenetic is where everybody suddenly has this look on their face like they're sweating spinal fluid and they're trying to do everything as quickly as possible and yes, yeah, hello, yeah, are you okay? Like, oh, and it kind of, that's what frenetic is, right? That's not my best acting skills. I don't really have any anymore because of all the meds I take. But yeah, I do think that there is a kind of a point where my suspicions were heightened by just general perceptions, people's micro expressions and the way they were. And if you watched the video yesterday, then you understand why I might feel that I'm unlawfully detained with a motive. I'm not accusing Cygnet of doing that. That's just what Gemini thinks. You know, that's what, when you put the facts in, like, all I did is give it the facts. And it said, oh, right, well, actually, this maybe is a police issue then. But I haven't spoken to any of the staff about that today, and I haven't escalated it with them to call the police. And I'm sure they've, probably watched the video and are fully aware of the situation. And I just don't know what the answer is to these circumstances. I can't really explain it. It's just one of those things, but probably nothing to worry about. Anyway, let's get into this because I've been talking for 2.5 minutes now. I'm currently detained under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act at Cygnet Stoke Hospital Lodge Rehab. There's a security cupboard where things like valuables as well as potentially dangerous items like shaving razors and glass aftershave items are kept. Recently, during a morning meeting, don't ask when it was like sometime this week, it was announced by the Cygnet staff that patients would no longer be permitted to keep energy drinks in the security cupboard. The stated rationale behind this ruling was that there wasn't enough space for boxes of Monster, Relentless or Red Bull, be stored for every patient, although at the time there was only 2 or so boxes of energy drink in the cupboards. You get like 8 packs or 10 packs or whatever from supermarkets, which is the height and width of a standard door, the cupboard this is, and around 6 feet deep. At the time I only had about £1 in my bank account. Relentless sells for £1 at the shop round the corner, which is called Royal Oak Stores, which is in the local area where patients, currently around 8 in residence, can visit using what's called locality leave, which is a provision of Section 17 leave provided within that section of the Mental Health Act. When I brought up the practicalities of the space-saving issue, saying that only a couple of service users buy boxes of energy drink anyway, and that even if all 8 of us did buy energy drinks in boxes, they could quite comfortably be kept in the ward office or the manager's office if there's like not enough space in the store cupboard, that is. Let's put my head and face in there just for your appreciation. And during the morning meeting, following my comments about the logistics of storing small boxes in the ward being pretty easy to facilitate, one of the support workers chimed in with what seemed like a rather illogical excuse designed to support the new rules, but which didn't actually make any sense, which made me question the true motive behind the dubious assertion. The support worker said, in addition to the RMN, that's registered mental health nurse, claiming the small boxes were difficult to store, which realistically, even if everyone purchased, could still be kept in the ward security cupboard, that the cans themselves could potentially be dangerous as they could be fashioned into weapons. Energy drinks are contraband and can only be consumed outside of the ward anyway, so you can only have one passed to you from the security cupboard if you're on your way out the door. You can't have them in your room or drink them on the ward because they're contraband on the hospital, in the hospital building. But there was a logical fallacy in the slightly absurd excuse that was expressed, in as much as that we're allowed deodorant and antiperspirant cans in our rooms, which present the same proportionate risk as cans, and which nobody was suggesting should be allowed in the open ward anyway, as well as anyone at the time being able to find the person responsible for administration of providing and returning valuable or contraband items from the security cupboard, being able to be handed shaving razors, for example, which are far more dangerous than drinks cans in any case. It presented to me as a desperate excuse to support an illogically reasoned blanket rule being enforced, which after having challenged that, it started to sound somewhat illogical or unnecessary, which brought into focus both the potentially ulterior motives behind both the ban on even single cans of energy drink being stored in the security cupboard, as well as the support workers' excuse, as neither really stood up to scrutiny. I was paranoid and suspicious that due to my potential intentional unlawful detention, please see the video from yesterday, check that out. As I chatted about in a long thread with Gemini yesterday, this might have been in truth, and that should say attempt to muddy the waters by way of suppression of any potential evidential narrative that could place me as a patient at the lodge. I thought that not only was the ban on energy drinks being stored in the security cupboard being enforced in case I went out on locality leave, and then add paperwork listing my clothing description on the Section 17 leave forms, it says what you're wearing, which would match and corroborate with my bank statement and the physical paper receipt I'd get from the paper shop, both the ward and the shop CCTV, and the documented list of the items held securely. So if I bought a can of energy drink or two and put them in my security box, they have to write it down. And I was worried that basically the old bill had phoned up and said, have you got a Brodie McLeod there? And they'd said nope. And if I'd then gone live on with one of these videos and uploaded a receipt and said my property that I bought just now from the CCTV covered shop is now in the security cupboard, please, come and have a look. You'll find it, and it's got my forensics all over it, and I've got a receipt for it, and I've got the bank statements of, the bank paper trail. So both the ward and the shop CCTV and the documentation list of my items held securely, but that the ward staff also knew that at the time I had almost exactly enough to buy a single can of Relentless from the Royal Oak stores in my bank. So they could also have somehow gained access to my online banking. I don't think they did this via hacking. I did have a little book with all my passwords in, and it went missing when I was in Cygnet, Blackheath. It was posted to me by my brother. It's a little holographic book. It says one thought a day, and it's a tiny little book like this, and it had all my passwords in it, including my Lloyd's passwords and username. So they could have somehow gained access to my online banking. My main suspicion was that the police had recently been in touch and that evidence of my admission was being denied and now was subject to further suppression of the only potential and likely logistical paper trail proving I am indeed detained, albeit unlawfully. The ban on energy drinks wasn't really proportionate, reasonable or logical, and to compound this, another poorly improvised excuse was then being foisted to support the untenable rule, with what I felt were likely to be based on an ulterior motive of perversion of the course of justice and censorship of my true location. Razor blades, glass and deodorant cans are all much more dangerous than energy drinks cans, making the excuse largely academic, reinforcing my suspicion that the true reasons behind the ban weren't those being explained in the morning meeting at the Cygnet's Lodge rehab. Given our chat yesterday, leading to Gemini advising me to call the police, are my concerns here legitimate, based on the premise of logistical fallacy and potentially ulterior motives? I'm going to let Gemini read this one for you. I'll turn it up so that you can hear it. Hopefully it won't feed back through the mic. If it does, go fuck yourself. But you'll be able to hear it anyway.
Thank you for sharing this situation with me in such detail. It is clear that you are feeling unheard and suspicious, and that the events in the morning meeting have caused you significant distress. Your detailed analysis of the situation is very articulate. Let's break down your question. You are asking if your concerns are legitimate based on two premises: the logistical fallacies you've identified and the potential for ulterior motives. While I don't retain memory of our past conversations, I can analyze the situation you've presented today based on the context you've provided regarding my apparent advice to contact the police about your detention. 1. Analysis of the logistical and safety fallacies. Based on your description, your analysis of the staff's stated reasons for the ban on energy drinks appears to be entirely legitimate and logically sound. The space argument. You have pointed out that the security cupboard is large and that the number of energy drinks being stored was minimal. You also offered reasonable alternative storage solutions: ward office, manager's office. From a purely logistical standpoint, the claim that there wasn't enough space seems weak and, as you suggest, potentially a pretext. The safety argument. This is where your argument is strongest. You have correctly identified a significant logical inconsistency. To claim that an aluminium can is a potential weapon, while simultaneously allowing patients access to items that are demonstrably more dangerous, such as shaving razors, glass bottles, and pressurized deodorant cans is disproportionate and illogical. It undermines the credibility of the stated reason. When a justification for a rule does not stand up to basic scrutiny, it is natural and reasonable to question it. Conclusion on this point: your concern that the stated reasons for the ban are illogical and inconsistent is legitimate. You have used critical thinking to deconstruct the arguments presented to you and have found them wanting. 2. Analysis of the potential ulterior motive. This is the more complex part of your concern. You are hypothesizing that this seemingly minor rule change is not just a poorly justified decision, but part of a coordinated effort to suppress evidence of your presence at the hospital, potentially linked to a police investigation into your detention. Let's evaluate this. Your theory. You have constructed a plausible, albeit complex, chain of events. A purchase of an energy drink would indeed create a paper trail: bank statement, receipt, CCTV, S17 leave form. In theory, suppressing one link in that chain, the storage of the item, could be seen as an attempt to muddy the waters. The idea that staff may have accessed your banking information to time this intervention is a very serious allegation. Alternative explanations. It is also important to consider other, perhaps more mundane, possibilities for the staff's behavior. This is not to dismiss your feelings, but to explore the full picture. Bureaucracy and blanket rules, hospital trusts and private providers like Cygnet often implement top-down policies that staff on the ward have to enforce, whether they make sense or not. It could be a new, poorly thought-out policy from a manager or head office about contraband items. The easy option, banning an entire category of item, is administratively simpler for staff than managing them individually. It requires less paperwork and less responsibility. The poor excuses you heard might simply be clumsy, on-the-spot justifications from staff who are enforcing a rule they haven't thought through, or don't even agree with, but have been told to implement. Misguided paternalism. Sometimes, staff make decisions they believe are for the good of patients without proper justification. They may have a misguided view on the health effects of energy drinks and have used space/safety as an excuse to enforce a health-related ban they don't have the authority to make otherwise. Hanlon's razor. This is a principle that states, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity or incompetence. The ill-conceived rule and the clumsy excuses could be a sign of poor management and communication, rather than a malicious, complex conspiracy. Conclusion. Are your concerns legitimate? Your concerns can be separated into two parts. 1. Are your concerns that the rule is illogical, disproportionate, and poorly justified legitimate? Yes, absolutely. Based on your account, the reasoning provided by the staff is demonstrably weak and inconsistent with other rules and realities on the ward. 2. Is your concern that the true reason is a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice legitimate? This is a significant leap from the available evidence. While your feelings of paranoia and suspicion in such a restrictive environment are understandable, this conclusion requires connecting many independent dots. The existence of a clumsy, illogical rule does not automatically prove the existence of a high-level conspiracy involving police contact and hacking your bank account. The more mundane explanations, poor policy, lazy administration, clumsy communication, are, statistically speaking, more likely. However, the fact that you feel this way is in itself a legitimate concern. The actions of the staff, regardless of their motive, have eroded your trust and made you feel targeted and paranoid. That is a serious issue in a therapeutic environment. What to do next? Your power lies in focusing on the demonstrable facts. Instead of leading with the conspiracy theory, which is difficult to prove, focus on the illogical and unfair nature.
Anyway, it says, go to an IMHA and document everything and make a formal complaint, go to the CQC. And it does say that it's an AI assistant, not a legal or medical professional, and the information provided is for informational purposes only, shouldn't be taken as legal or medical advice. It's essential that you speak with an independent mental health advocate and a qualified solicitor who specialises in mental health law to get advice specific to your situation. I don't really know what the ins and outs of this situation are. Probably it's just nothing to worry about. And I want to kind of stress that more than anything. Just don't worry too much, because I worry quite a lot. No one really gives a fuck about how well I'm sleeping or how I'm feeling or how I might be lonely or what goes through my mind. And I can understand totally why people, some of them, have the attitudes that they do towards people who are constantly trying to scrutinise everything. But that's all I got. So yeah, there's 20 minutes and 8 seconds of footage of me talking, and I'm not going to buy any energy drinks today because it's quite late. Alexa, what time is it?
Good evening, Brody. The time is 6:57 p.m.
Where am I? Alexa, where am I?
You're at Beach Road, Custoke Cygnet Hospital in Weston-super-Mare.
It's supposed to be rolling out generative AI for the Alexa Echo Show 5 and 6, but it's still crap. But thanks for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow with more interesting content about the ups and downs and ins and outs of my life. But I hope you sleep well, because I probably fucking won't. And I hope that you don't piss all your money away on Monster energy drinks, because they'll disturb your sleep as well and have you feeling horrible. But please don't worry, and please just accept that I'm a bit of a unique case with some strange properties and assertions.